Yeah, so we finally figured out, at least I think we figured out why it's running so rich, but we also figured out that even though the tach gauge works, it runs like shit. And the actual Holley handheld unit is not registering a tach signal. I had Bo pull the cam sensor out of the timing cover, buried in there. Even though this is a 58X engine, they should come with a 4X reluctor wheel on the cam. Well, this one had a 1X reluctor wheel installed. So since they don't come like that from the factory, we had to change some settings in the Holley. Well, when we connected to the Holley, we found it was an old firmware variant, so we updated the firmware, we updated the handheld, and then for some reason the ignition options were grayed out. So I had Bo call Holley tech support, and they were like, it'll be faster if I just unlock everything for you. So we sent them the tune file, they sent one back, and Bo's currently working on putting it on the SD card, and then we're going to re-upload it to the Holley unit. And when we were looking at how to flash these things and talk to them, we found out that Holley does not include a tuning cable with their expensive Terminator X ECU setup, which is stupid. Why would you sell a tunable ECU with no tuning cable? But whatever. So, be prepared for that if you're building one of these. Pay extra for the cable because it doesn't come with it. So if we can get this running right, I drove it to the gas station late last week and put about 10 gallons in it. But if we can get it to run properly and not go super rich, we'll do one more heat cycle, drain and fill the oil again, get all the break-in oil out of it, and then we'll be ready to send this to BSP Motorsports for an alignment to get all of the 8.8 stuff adjusted out in the rear and actually make this thing roadworthy. And then from there, it's just kind of moving on to the final QC stuff. We've got some like finishing underhood stuff. We've got heat shields to powder coat. We've got some cleanup, function testing, and we need to have the AC hoses fabricated for his vintage air unit, get that across the finish line. So it's moving along. And then he bought a low profile sub amp combo. He actually bought the speakers out of my LS400 because they're Infinity references. So we're gonna mount those, put the radio in, and do a real nice, you know, stereo in this thing, slowly put the interior back together, and get this thing finally out on the street. So it's getting there, slowly but surely. So this one's dead in the water because we think Holley sent us the wrong file.
I don't know.
Okay.
Put the blame on them, but I don't know nothing.
Yeah. Well, we emailed Holley about changing the cam sensor settings, and they said they would do it for us. Well, when we put the new one on, it doesn't start at all. It just cranks and cranks. So we're waiting on another emailed reply back to find out what the deal is with that. This was a lot more complicated than we initially expected, this Holley setup. We ended up just having to make our own custom tune parameters. Basically, the rep that we emailed at Holley more or less was useless and actually made the problem worse, but we figured it out. So we actually have this car scheduled to go to BSP Motorsports for an alignment. It's going to go to BSP, get the Apex engineered stuff all aligned, and then it may go to Jesse's Performance for a dyno tune, and then we'll get it back here and finish all the break-in and the finishing touches and all that. We got Mr. Pina's back from BSP. The alignment was solid. Everything paint markered. And that happened yesterday on a road test. Luckily, we didn't go very far. It was just up and down the street road test, but we were getting ready to send it out to Jesse's Performance for a drivability tune. And now that ain't gonna happen. And so, one of the concerns I had at BSP was just due to the ride height, wheel combination, all these other factors, we had a lot of positive camber in it. And we even maxed out the camber plates negative. And these were turned almost all the way in when it left here, and you can see how much they stuck it out. And it still left with half a degree of positive camber. They were worried about axle bind or something like that happening. And that's what happened. So, customer's supposed to come in a little bit later today, and we're going to discuss his options. What I would suggest is getting a different set of wheels that fits properly, so that we can lower the car and not have to worry about it contacting the fenders. Because it's a fresh paint job, he doesn't want to roll the fenders. He's somewhat open to flaring it, but that's not really at the top of his list. So ideally, if we can get a better set of fitting wheels that tuck in better, lower it some, and then I had talked to Ohm at Apex about this yesterday. The couple of options we're kicking around is a little bit longer axle on this side to account for better geometry. He actually changes the design that we're going to use on the white 240, where this upright is no longer solid welded. It has like a McPherson strut style disconnect with 2 bolts and a additional camber adjustment there. So if we had that, we could pull this track width adjustment back in, you know, to shove the axle further in, and then adjust our camber with the camber plate and the adjustable upright there. So we're just going to have to kind of play with it and see what the customer thinks is going to be the best option moving forward, coupled with what we think and what's going to be the fastest solution, because we can't afford another 3 months of waiting for revised parts on this build. So that's where we're at on that. Hopefully they're right.
They stapled the shit out of this thing.
What about the top? Is the other side stapled?
I flipped it over because this one was, yeah. Look at that.
Man,
It
it's
ain't
got a lot
opening.
better packing materials this go around.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot better than shrink wrap. All right. So we've got revised uprights with bolts in them
Spots.
to give us some extra camber adjustment. Hopefully this will alleviate our issue.
Is it for this way?
I think it actually goes, it sandwiches.
Oh,
Yeah.
sandwich? Okay, yeah.
So that should allow us to put the wheel positive.
Negative.
You're right. Put it negative and reduce our track width adjustments. So, yeah, I guess we got to cut and then repowder. Well, you got your work cut out for you.
Yeah, for real.
All right. Finally got this pig. Sucks that we can't compare the spindles now, but that's all right.
Yeah.
So one thing we noticed, I guess I should turn my light on. I keep forgetting to do that. We definitely believe that this hub is closer to the diff now, which should solve some engagement issues. And with this, it allows us to tilt the wheel further in, which means we can account for reducing the track width. Oh, cool, I didn't realize you had it loose. Yeah. So the only thing we have to worry about now is how close we are to contacting the body. See, like, right there, with the particular wheel offset we got here, it's gonna hit. I forgot to have you grab a camber measurement before we pulled that side down, too. But, I mean, we'll just... It's BSP's problem.
It's gonna have to get real.
Yeah, it's gonna have to get real. I was just trying to save him a little bit of labor, but, you know. Mr. Pina's getting a street tune. We called somebody out to come tune this thing for us. Post Apex parts. So now we got the axle situation figured out and the suspension situation figured out. We're gonna send it back to BSP for another alignment. Well, we got some snowfall in Fort Worth. It's been below freezing for the last few days, and so far it doesn't look like it's gonna snow again. But the concern is you can see some of the snow's already been melting just from the sun. I think it's like minus 11 right now, but all of this is going to turn into ice overnight, so it's going to be a lot slicker tomorrow. But, you know, for now, we're just running a skeleton crew. And this is the purple powder-coated engine that we were building a couple of vlogs ago. It's just in full quality control mode. We're just road testing it, breaking the motor in, listening for noises, checking for leaks, things like that. I think I put the wrong thickness lash pads in here. It was an OE spec setup, so I just grabbed a bunch of OE like parts I had sitting on the shelf. And I got a mixed combination somewhere because the valve lash is set properly, but I bet if I check the light pattern, it's going to be off, so I got to get the correct thickness lash pads in there. And then that'll be ready to go. Let's go check in on the guys. So this is what we do for snow days. We just run the heater on full blast and do stuff we can that doesn't require moving cars out, because I don't want to end up where the cars won't end up back in the shop. So it's going to be kind of a half day, 3/4 day for us. Got a G37 here with a customer installed his own valve body that he got from eBay to fix one problem and installed another, and shorted some stuff. We've put a PCM in this thing, reprogrammed it. It's been through the ringer with this one, but we're putting a different transmission assembly with an OEM part in it, because for what it cost for a new valve body from Infinity, it was actually cheaper for the customer to buy a used transmission with a 2-year warranty. And we'll go ahead and changing all the harnesses and stuff that we bought for him on the old trans, and we're going to put this assembly in. See what happens. But moral of the story, don't buy valve bodies on eBay.
Don't buy a G35.
Don't buy a G35 either.
If you do bring it to Bo, he likes to work on this car.
Yeah. Fluid doesn't look terrible. Oh, that's off the other trans,
Half
right?
that is the new trans fluid, or well, the original transmission fluid is in there.
Yeah.
The fluid that came out of here looked like that.
That's not terrible. I've seen worse.
Yeah.
Remember that 350Z we did twice? And the first transmission we put in it, it had metal shavings.
No.
Yeah, that was the one time I didn't drop the pan, because I trusted LKQ, and it was smoked out like almost instantly.
Damn.
Yeah. But they paid out, so.
The only one I've done is I did the valve body or TCM swap on that blue 350Z. But I don't really do a whole lot of automatic stuff.
Yeah. How's this thing going?
The alternate charging cable is on, and the wiring to make it actually turn on is in. Whether it works or not, I don't know. It's installed.
Cool.
We'll be able to see anything from the top.
Yeah,
I got it all hidden.
I don't think I filmed this since we got like the Holley ran and injectors and all that installed. So
these both test for ground, but I feel like I remember hooking up these together on Loya's car, and then I let the smoke out of the wires. So I don't
well,
really
look
want
at,
to let the smoke out of the wires again.
Look at McPherson's car.
This car is not a 77. This car isn't internally regulated. That's why it's different. Because usually it's just this one.
Okay.
That's it. But this one is extra. I need to look at Bo's car, but even his car is different because his car has a different alternator. So.
Well,
I don't know.
When we get it ready to power up, if you use a fuse jumper, ground it if the fuse blows, and you know it's actual 12 volts. If it doesn't blow, then it's a ground, because you're going to read 12 volts there with a voltmeter, because like 12 volts is waiting to go to ground. Does that make sense? So that'll psych you out. It happened to me before. I'm like, dude, all these ground wires have 12 volts. So maybe we're almost ready to do the axles and rear suspension. Depending on how much you got left here.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'd like to like put plugs on it and like put oil in it, and start it.
That oil tank will be here today.
Because it's probably not that far away from starting.
Yeah, I still got to find you the correct barb fittings.
Yeah, that's true. I need to do the fuel. Yeah, so I guess I can do rear suspension after lunch.
Okay. Cool. Putting some FutoFab axles in this pig.
Yes, it's the wrong size.
Does it fit? You gotta do when you get the control arms in and the axles and all that, you should go, it fits!
What if it doesn't?
Then go, it doesn't fit! Finally broke down and ordered one of these oil tanks instead of pulling all the spark plugs out and cranking it to build pressure. Figured it was time to be a little bit more professional, especially like we've been sitting on this engine a while, so better safe than sorry. But basically how this works, you just fill it with oil, pressurize it, and you inject it straight into the engine through the oil pressure port. Is it working?
Yeah.
Oh, you had to strip all of this off, huh?
Yeah, I was all in the way.
Yeah. Alright. So if you're doing FutoFab axles, you gotta trim the stubs. You gotta trim the spindles. And then it'll clear. Per the instructions.
Hey, you know, these are size specific?
One might be longer than the other, yeah.
They are.
Okay. Did you
Yeah.
put one in the wrong side?
Yeah. 50-50 chance you get it wrong 100%.
You don't remember me telling you yesterday one side's longer?
No.
It's in the same part of his memory where the instructions were for...
Yeah. Can you look at this car? One side doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like that size long.
Damn, I can see a lot. Well, Caleb is showing us why you can only install axles on one side.
You saw
Damn,
that
that,
shit.
was,
You
that
saw
was a
that
slick
shit.
catch.
On
I don't know if the
camera.
wide angle got it all the way,
You
but
saw that shit.
cat-like reflexes. He's got good physical reflexes, no mental reflexes.
That's not true.
Dude, somebody's gonna try to cancel us on YouTube
absolutely.
for saying that. Like, I have a cousin who actually is. No. And then I'm getting ready to call Dave at FutoFab because we got one of the stubs is a smaller spline, so I'm gonna call Dave and find out what happened there. Apex sent us a control arm where whoever was working there jammed the Heim joint all the way in with powder in the threads. Oh, it's sandblasting media. Jesus Christ. We got this control arm with sandblast media in the threads, and the Heim joint's jammed, so got a replacement on the way. I think we have an older Technotoy tuning design here because the bolts hit, and you can see the diff case hits the mount, so I need to message them and find out if they have a revised design, and if so, can they send it? So there's that. But we might hear this thing go vroom vroom tomorrow. I don't know. There's some close-ups of the CX Racing fitment. So far these have been the best fitting headers for the LS swaps we've either performed or have dealt with post-swap here. We did them with the Dirty Dingo mounts. That's about where we slotted it. So if you end up buying any supporting parts from us, drive shaft, whatever, that's about where you need to locate the engine mounts to get good header clearance in a 280. And I'm getting ready to order the drive shaft. This is where the floor lines up, shifter placement. It's offset to the left, but you know, we're gonna fabricate a plate to close that hole.
We have Everson 280Z right here. Finally have rear wheels on it because there was finally suspension on the car. I have FutoFab axles installed with the HD stubs. Those are in there, you can't see them, but you can flex like that. Let's see. Oh yeah. So, say if someone pulls up and they know what they know, then they know, you know? Bright orange axles look real pretty under there. They weren't that bad to install if you follow the instructions. If you don't follow the instructions like I do, then you call Dave and Dave tells you, hey asshole, follow the instructions, and then you do, and that can make sense. Got our Apex arms on, did a half-assed eyeball alignment to make it sort of straight, maybe, we'll see. But yep, now I get to run the fuel system for that big honking LS up front. Maybe bleed the clutch eventually. Do something under here. Got the wiring harness in place. All the wiring that I could run underneath the intake manifold is placed under the intake. All that crap back there I can't do anything about, but for the most part, looks pretty solid in there. I'm going to work on running the fuel system. If you have a 280Z and you have a fuel pressure regulator from Aeromotive, it fits right there. You don't even have to drill holes in the car. And that's how I do it. I don't drill holes in cars unless I really, really have to. So yeah, engine's looking good. I gotta wire in some more things, but every day is one step closer. This car used to be full of parts, now it's only half full of parts. We are back with this bad Chevy engine, bad car. Just kidding. It should work now. Bad guy. We used an oil pressure tank, that one, to forcibly inject 5 quarts of oil into the engine through the oil pressure sending unit in the back. In theory, it has oil in it now. I have power disconnected from the injectors. Should have no injector, no fuel pump. I have the coils undone. I'm gonna crank it. I did bump the starter once already to make sure it did do something, and it does. So, ready?
Yeah.
It says I have 30 pounds on the dash.
Sweet.
Does it come out yet?
I haven't noticed any.
I'll keep going.
I don't see any, but I don't really have much to look at.
I have RPM too.
Nice. Looks like your motor was built correct.
Well, Chris, if you were here, it'd start. It's your fault. You're not here. No V8 noise today. Gotta make V8 noise at 8 a.m. Monday.
And I ain't even gonna be here.
Zoom in.
It's Rich. Will you, let's do it one more time. I'm gonna have you film it running so I can send it to the customer. Okay. Just holler at Caleb when you're ready. Yeah, that's really rich. You're cool. Got signs of life.
Turns out I might know what I'm doing.
Right? All right. Yeah, go ahead and hold it at 3,000. Let off. Yeah, they're working partially, but all right. Well, he needs cats, dude. You're not gonna believe how much.
How much headers are?
No, well, it's gonna be like a little less than half to do headers than it would be to do factory cats.
Okay.
So I called Sewell Lexus. Retail per side $2,300 just for the cat. So $5 grand for 2 cats. It's part of the manifold, and then about another $2 grand labor. It's a pretty car. Hold on. There you get the back. All right. Toyota does make a good sounding V8. Got our first RV swap in the works that we're getting ready to schedule here in the next 2 to 4 weeks. This customer had an RV swap 280 that got stolen, I think in Florida, from how he explained it to me. So got RB25 Neo, trans, everything. We thought initially the harness was uncut, but it's been cut. So a lot of the times it's pigs pulling these things down. They just cut everything in their way. So I'm going to have to look for either a used OEM harness for the customer, or maybe we'll just go with a wiring specialties harness and be done with it. Alrighty. We're working on Courtney's car. It's been long overdue for a water pump, which is timing chain driven. This car's got almost 200K on it. We've been sorting through just random stuff here and there since we've owned it. And it's finally time to do all the stuff that I've been putting off because I keep swapping daily drivers. But I'm getting ready to tear the front cover off and get inside this engine. And I'll show you all the special tool that needs to go on these 3.5s, 3.7 Ford engines to lock the cams in place when you take the chains off and get everything set up to swap the water pump, which is chain driven. And as you can tell, it ain't gonna happen in frame. So, but one of the things I did do while I had it out is I changed all of the heater hoses. It's got rear heat, so I'm waiting on 2 more for over here. But I went to the dealer. Of course, they didn't have any of these in stock, and it was gonna be like $350 worth of heater hoses. So luckily, you know, as I've said before, we're next door to XL Parts, and they're always a lifesaver when it comes to situations like this where we just take the old parts off. And the manager's real cool, Justin. He'll let us just kind of thumb through hoses and match stuff up. We match up switches, brackets, just whatever we need. We're able to find OEM parts that are not necessarily listed for, whether it's a daily driver like this or even the Datsuns, and we'll adapt them to fit with relative ease. Maybe a minor degree of fabrication and keep these cars on the road. So yeah, once I get done with the motor stuff, I'm gonna stab it all back in, yank the trans out, do the remain seal. I think it needs a torque converter seal. So I'm gonna have my work cut out for me for a while. So here we go. All right, we got it torn down enough to expose the chains, and this is what I was talking about, the water pump being driven by the timing chain and buried in here. And of course there's no crank keyway, so that's why, I mean, there is to hold the gear on, but there's no real way of verifying top dead center. So there's this special tool that you install that lines up with these little notches inside the cams. So I got those in, and what I'm going to do is as soon as I release the hydraulic tensioner, the cams are going to want to relax with all the valve spring pressure, so it's actually going to hold the cam timing in place until I restore the mechanical timing here. So yeah, let's get we're going to be working on tearing down a couple of the other odds and ends, replace the water pump, put it all back together. Alright, here's what I was talking about with the cam tools. So they hold the cams and lock them so that you can remove these really tight cam bolts, pull all the guides and everything off on the water pump. So yeah, getting ready to start reassembling and clean all the oil and coolant off everything. Put the timing cover back on. I don't know if I turned the camera on when I had this thing timed, but it's got all new chains and guides and the water pump and all that. So I just finished putting the cover on. Like all of our Datsun stuff, pretty much anything that I work on, Toyota FIPG, whether it's for engine oil or coolant, I use their black stuff, or if it's transfer case differential, I use the orange stuff. By far the best sealant on the market. I think there are a few YouTube videos proving that, like Project Farm, and I think there's one other guy that proved that FIPG is the best sealant, especially when you look at it from an economical standpoint. Honda Bond's pretty good too. Those are the only 2 sealants that I would trust in my 16 years of doing this now. So, little tidbit for anybody watching, if you're a do-it-yourselfer and you want a good sealant that does not leak, Toyota FIPG. Stands for Form in Place Gasket. So yeah, I'm gonna let the sealant just dry up for a little bit. I gotta swap all of the spark plug tube seals and the cam timing actuator seals at the front of the valve cover. I'm gonna swap all those next. Get the valve covers on. I got a new power steering pump to put on because that thing was pissing. But you can see how little room there is. It was one of those, like, now's the time to do all of it. So, all right, we finally have it ready to go back in. And because the cross member separates from the engine is held in by the body. So there's a mount attached to the body there, mount over there. I'm gonna stab the motor back in and get it at least secure, and then I'm gonna fixture, I've got this engine holder type deal. I'm gonna hold the engine in the body and then remove the transmission so I can do the rear main seal. And I also need to do the front torque converter seal. So we're gonna start stabbing it in. Well, we got the motor stabbed in yesterday, motor and trans. And I was getting ready to start pulling the transmission. But before I stabbed the motor in, I was gonna service the transfer case because for some reason Ford thought it'd be a good idea to not put a drain plug on it, only put a fill plug. And the catalytic converter sits like right here. So I can see why nobody ever wanted to service it. And so what I was gonna do is I was gonna use my fluid extractor. And it turns out nobody has serviced this thing in 200,000 miles. I've had the car for a little over a year, I think. And it was filthy on the inside. I'm really glad I had to pull it anyways to take the transmission out. So I decided to go ahead and split the case just to inspect it and clean it. It turned into about an hour-long detour, but I got it all cleaned up, sealed. But it was full of soot. Like the fill hole was full of soot. I couldn't even shove my extractor tube in there. So, you know, this so far has been a big while you're there syndrome kind of car, but you know, at least now we're gonna keep it on the road for many more years to come. So I'm gonna get working on pulling the transmission to do the rear main seal and the torque converter seal. Then we can finally do final assembly. Okay. I didn't film the rear main because there's not really much to show. It was a leaking rear main seal. And behind the flex plate, you know, there's a whole rear main plate. It's sealed with sealant, so I took that down. I took the oil pan down. We did all of it, just fresh FIPG on everything. So that way there's no more areas where it could leak if it wasn't already leaking. I know the rear main seal was definitely leaking. Rear main plate more than likely was, but it was an extra 30 minutes to just do the oil pan. So we got it done. We're putting the transmission back in now. And I'm gonna actually start final assembly now and get this pig running today. So here we go. Finally getting this one wrapped up. We did the painless harness on this like last year. And he's been enjoying it for about a year. He put his own Phytech stuff in it, put a Terminator X in it. When it left here, it had just the Holley Sniper kit. So he did that. We tidied up a few odds and ends on the electrical and added hazards to it. Made him a little straight pipe add-on exhaust if he wants to delete the muffler because he likes it to be loud. And so this thing is pretty much ready to go back to him. Mr. Casey picked up his V8 280Z, dropped off his 350Z real clean, and we're putting 370Z power seats in his 350Z. And so far the harness is plug and play. The seat frames require some modification because they're wider on the 350Z. So we're adding some extra material to the seat brackets to widen them and make it bolt in. And then he'll have, the car came with factory heated seats and power. Harness is all plugged right in and everything works, which is really cool. So you can update your 350Z with 370Z seats with some minor modifications.
Oh damn, I didn't know you were vlogging.
Oh, you hear me talking?
No, I didn't.
You're like in the zone. Nice. Cool.
Spin those.
Pretty easy so far?
Hopefully, as long as they line up. But
Yeah.
I tacked them and checked them.
Right. Cool. Alright, so what's the final verdict? Is the driver's side we only had to wallow out one hole?
Yeah, two.
Two holes.
So a little bit and a little bit. And the dowel.
And cut the dowel out of the car, or remove it. I guess it's a threaded dowel, it unthreads?
No, I cut it.
Okay. And then on the passenger side, we had to...
It's already bolted in.
Ah. Well, I filmed that earlier, add material. And so everything else is plug and play, huh?
Yeah, I transferred over the seatbelt buckles.
Mm-hmm.
It's this plug right here.
So 350Z seatbelt buckles.
Yeah, it looks like, I mean, they have little
Yeah.
lock pins
and they all go. This one broke.
Yeah.
But they all go somewhere.
Cool.
Yeah, this is factory seatbelt buckle one,
Mhm.
and the only thing that doesn't work is the airbag plug. The yellow
Right.
one.
And it's just the connector's different.
Connector's different, but they're both 2-wire.
So this one we know has a side curtain or side impact airbag. Do the old seats have them?
Don't think so.
No, because they're so. But you're saying there's a leftover yellow connector
Yes.
in the car.
It's in the car too.
Okay. Huh. But no airbag lights on?
No.
We'll
It
just
doesn't
leave
even
them.
have a seatbelt buckle light.
Okay. Well, we'll just leave it alone. So, if you're doing this swap at home, you're on your own when it comes to airbag. Don't take advice from us. I don't want the liability. It's do it yourself for a reason.
Yeah, for real. But no, this one will bolt right in. I already checked it. I just
Cool.
sprayed everything with paint so it was open.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks a lot better in here. 370Z seats in here.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I'm very happy he has a removable steering wheel.
Yeah.
You can
It
get
makes
it
life
out,
10
but-
times easier.
Yeah.
Nice. Got us some diff bushings. And a rear diff cover reseal. Nice going. This is Mr. Casey's other money pit. So he picked one up and left one with us. Got Rico's remote turbo Z31. Mr. Head Bonk.
Mr. Headball, Mr. Z31 for the shop. No one else works on these cars. But It is weird that this is the least like knowledge one we have. Like we don't know anything about this.
Well, it's because most of the people that have bought these historically don't want to spend money on them. But, you know, like everything else, market shifting. So we did only fuel system hoses on it. It was in a while ago, we put Schneider Stage 4 cams in it. I did a set of dual catch cans. And I think if we can get it to not leak fuel, it's going to go get tuned.
Who's tuning it?
That I don't know. I haven't talked to him about it, but I'll probably recommend Steve at PRT. Since we can't trust anybody locally anymore. Not to name any names. And then if you're asking yourself, can I do a Pro Tuner's intake with factory EFI?
No.
Yes, if you like struggling. So we're putting a Mega Squirt in Mr. Johnson's car. Which is what we should have done to start with, but, you know. It's just how it goes sometimes. And here's one of my 2 calipers. Considering this is my first time personally powder coating, fairly happy with it. I made a boo-boo though, so I gotta order a seal. Because I'm stubborn, even though Caleb told me to take them apart. I was like, that takes too long. It'll take much less time to have a piston pop out in the oven and catch fire and then tear up one of the piston seals and then have to order a piston seal and wait for it to show up than if I'd have just listened and taken it apart. Right, Caleb?
No.
There's the other one. This is Leprechaun Tears. Which, let's go compare it to my license plate. The whole point of this color. And it's a little lighter, but the other thing too is my license plate's covered in a little bit of oil mist right now. Hashtag BMW problems. Pretty sure I'm going to be putting turbos in this. Burns oil on decel, but it's not like your valve seal type burn. It smells like oil hitting the exhaust, like when you have a turbo that has a bad seal. So, yeah, shout out to the previous owner who neglected this car. But I did put my tips on. while I was powder coating these calipers. So I just got some El Cheapo tips from Amazon, cut them down, and just had them stick out slightly past the bumper. You know, nice black finish, kind of understated, but looks more than factory. Well, we're closing out February. Excuse me. We're closing out January. Mr. Brunner's, we got a pinion seal changed for him. Just some other odds and ends. We warrantied the aftermarket fan clutch we put in it. Installed an OEM from Z1 because it was hanging. So this one probably ready to go home. Mr. Mike Wynn, been patiently waiting. We're doing a turbo swap. I got to pull the motor out of the other car, the donor car, and we got to pull his engine. Mr. McPherson, Caleb just finished doing a clay bar and a polish. It's ready to go back to Georgia. Got a few new toe ends with some random odds and ends. And then this is a really good customer of ours, Mr. Cleland. He just had this car shipped in. It's got a TL70 in it. We're going to work through a few issues. He's going to have us install some Pro Tuners goodies and do a Megasquirt tune. So this one's in out of Florida. A little dirty because it's dusty right now. But yeah, we got some goodies coming up. This one's in from Virginia. It's a 260 that we're doing our fuel injection, individual throttle body kit, and a vintage air system. So, got quite a few jobs on hold that we're just trying to get the manpower. Got a Z3. This thing's like super low miles, like I think 83,000 miles or something like that. Had a cracked fuel pump hat that was leaking. So Bo swapped that out before he went on vacation. So now it doesn't leak fuel anymore. And so we got to figure out the parking brake and a couple of other odds and ends, and it can go back to its happy owner. We're closing out January. And so some of the things that are coming up, I'm actually in the process of hiring another office person to reduce my role in the office, which I'm hoping is going to allow me to be more of a master tech than I have been. Help get some of this work out of here. So we're going to be bringing some new personnel on to address the tech support issue that we still have, where it's just very slow going because I'm the only person that does it, among many other things. So we'll have a dedicated person, you know, answering the phones, emails. Basically what I'm trying to do is get where there is no lapse in communication. You don't have to leave a message and wait a day or two for me to call you back. Same with an email. You know, we're fortunate enough to be continually growing, but with that comes growing pains. So that's where we're at. So I'm bringing on some additional staff, some additional technology in the shop to help combat all that. So that's what we got going on coming down the pike. Appreciate y'all watching as always. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe.